thank you for spending part of your day with us. I'm Stacia. I'm a member of the utilities team here at Esri, and I'll be joined by some of my colleagues later as we spend some time learning how a mapping platform is changing the way utilities run their businesses and engage with their customers. You know, I think the reason that maps are so vital to utilities is because if you really think about it, your business is so spatial in nature. I mean, your customers are somewhere, your facilities are somewhere, your trucks are somewhere, you've got alarms and outages happening somewhere, scheduled inspections have to happen, that's somewhere, the weather is happening somewhere. It's really actually hard to think of a workflow at a utility that doesn't involve location. And because location touches every aspect of your business, it's really important that every stakeholder, whether they're internal or external, has access to authoritative maps that are relevant for their role and help them make the right decision at the right time. And we're not the only ones who think that. Today, you're going to hear from 3 utilities, just like yours, who've agreed to share their GIS journeys with you. So I think today you're really going to learn 3 different things. You're going to see how the ArcGIS platform enables every employee and contractor to discover, use, make, and share maps from any device, anywhere, anytime. You're going to see that field teams and office teams seamlessly united for what might be the first time ever. And you're going to get some ideas about how you can adapt to your changing customer expectations by proactively communicating with them and opening up some new channels so that they can communicate back to you using the method that they prefer. So to get things started, I'd like to play a short video for you. Our friends at Fort Hill Natural Gas Authority were gracious enough to invite us to their office, and they even let us tag along on some work orders, to document the positive change that GIS has made at their utility. So take a look.
Natural Gas Authority is in existence for one purpose, and that is to provide natural gas to the upstate of South Carolina. We have over 40,000 residential customers. We have a large industrial base as well. One of the most positive occurrences at our company here has been the implementation of ArcGIS for lots of reasons. The ability to do more with the same staff that we have. The ability to capture data for regulatory reasons, the ability to more quickly respond to our customers' needs. And all of those things we've been able to accomplish as a result of the implementation of our ArcGIS system, the use of mapping.
It's become a valuable tool for all employees, not just management, myself, the GIS department in a whole. Every department at Fort Hill Natural Gas is using GIS mapping.
Having everybody looking at one platform has been a big help. When the leak surveyors go out and they mark a leak, well, our construction crews can pull that leak point up before they ever leave, and they can see what grade it is, pictures associated with it, just numerous other things. So it has improved our workflow in that aspect.
When there is an emergency, I can use it, I can click on some valves, and in just a minute, I can see what's going on. Besides the base knowledge that we all have, I can pull that up, and it helps fortify what I think I might know, but it gives me that visual.
We've got information at our fingertips now where we know where our valves are readily. We know where these service lines are. Collection in the field becomes a real-time edit to the map, which is very powerful because then if we need other staff to respond to any situation, the information's already there.
We've probably been on Esri's system now 3 or 4 years, and it's hard to look back. It really is.
It is exciting to see what we're able to accomplish and to present to our staff in the field. So we're very excited about the future and where we're headed with this.
One of the things Sean said that really resonated with me is he said that ArcGIS fortifies what I think I might know. And I think that speaks to a common challenge that many utilities face. There's so much organizational knowledge locked away in employees' minds or on pieces of paper that they hoard in their trucks or back at their offices. But here we have a team member who acknowledges how helpful that one central version of the truth is. He's come to rely on it to supplement what he may or may not remember about the network or about the business in that particular situation. I think that's pretty interesting. So I'd like to bring my friend Kurt from Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative out to talk a little bit more about a mobile project that they worked on. Take it away, Kurt.
Thanks, Stacia. I'd like to thank Esri for inviting me out today to talk about the work of not just me, but a lot of people back at Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative in Arizona. We're a utility that we've been practicing enterprise GIS since really 2003. 2008, we implemented mobile tech, and we really have relied on GIS for many years now. But we've been working with our accounting group on updating our asset records, those historical records that go back decades. And we were presented with a business challenge just this year of, we have one section of our area, of our territory, that really had some difficulties with the data quality, and we didn't know if we could really trust it. So we implemented an asset inventory project, and the goal here, the deliverable, is to produce a complete asset list for one substation and all the assets, all the power lines and poles and infrastructure related to that. We also decided that we needed to make sure that the GIS is current for operations and engineering. So knowing that we had to collect 7,000 plus locations, it had to be visited as part of this project. And it was a very quick timeline for work. We had 2 to 3 weeks of getting started on this project, and we had a firm fixed deadline for completion. And that introduced a lot of challenges. In the rollout meetings, we discovered that there were some certain key project values. One of them is accuracy and speed. Those are both equal priorities for this project. We were going to use experienced internal staff, and I was really excited because these line workers, they know our system, they know those assets. When they look at a power pole, they know how it's built and what all those pieces are. That is what the data we needed to collect. But because of all these requirements, that technology platform had to work every single day. And it led me to some ideas about mobile first. And it was clear that the old methods were not going to apply for this project. And I've borrowed this term from the internet economy, but mobile first is really about a broad statement that says mobile apps are the only software tools needed for the field worker. When they start and end their day, are they accessing a desktop software and then launching it into a field platform like a toughened laptop and then coming back at the end of the day with that? In this case, we used iPads, and that means that everything they need is on that device. They could start and end their day. They didn't necessarily have to even come into the office to get started. So we're also going to deliver centimeter grade location accuracy with external GPS. And we're going to leverage the internet. We're going to synchronize to ArcGIS Online. And the goal is that is a very stable technology platform. It's scalable in case devices fail. Can I go to the store and buy a device and get it up and running in a couple hours? Can I add 3 or 4 people to the project 2 months in if there's problems with making sure we're going to hit our deadlines? So we needed a platform that was going to really work for the duration. To scope out the work, I like to think about things from the field perspective. How can we enable the field worker to be most efficient and to be effective in their work? And here we have a picture of a very analog asset. So here we have a record of thing. This is the way we look at it. We have a pole top, a cross arm, a transformer. We have all these things, and this is the information we're going to try to collect. And what we have to do is we have to translate this into codes. And these construction codes There's thousands of them, and many utilities have these lists. And those lists are, those little codes represent parts and pieces. And sometimes I feel like you need a master's degree in construction units to really understand what's happening in the field. And so it's a real opportunity to figure out, can we take that and really help the field worker get along and make their jobs easier? So we want to use smart forms. We want to categorize these assets into groups. We want to try to use common names. And in case we do have a question, we want photo attachments. Can we go back afterwards and save an extra field trip by looking at the photograph and clearing up any misunderstandings? There's a lot of information we could collect here, and we want to make sure it works. Getting started means there's a lot of organizational activity. I use this picture of the iceberg because it really shows that above the waterline is the field data collection. That's the piece that's really visible. But there's a lot of people and a lot of activities around what happens before that. And so we had a cross-functional team of accountants and engineers and field workers and GIS staff to really understand what our requirements were for this project. And the more of that we do sort of below the waterline, the smaller task up front is really the field data collection. It's still, it's everything in the project, but it makes that job that much more smooth. The platform itself is pretty basic in a way today. It didn't used to be this easy. We have a GPS receiver that's connecting to the iPad over Bluetooth. We have an app that manages those high accuracy corrections. It communicates with the RTK base station and delivers that centimeter grade accuracy GPS data stream to Collector for ArcGIS. And Collector for ArcGIS is where the user is going to really show on the map and the forms and the data. And that's where most of the real work is. And then once that's done, we're going to synchronize to ArcGIS Online. So you can synchronize offline, so you're disconnected all day and then synchronize at the end of the day, or you can synchronize as you go, depending on your cell phone coverage. So what I loved about this combination of tools is that the GPS piece does what it's good at, and Collector does what it is great at, which is collecting all that great information about our field assets. So it's not an all-in-one solution, but it's modular in a way that really works. Here's a picture of the setup. We have an iPad with a little wrist strap, so it's easy to hold up. And the GPS receiver fits in a pouch. We can see the lights on it, so it's easy to see what the status is. And we have the little antenna puck that you can easily carry with you, either on an antenna post or in a little, you can take it apart, put it in a little hat. The goal here is speed. We estimated over 7,000 locations. We had a budget for about 3 minutes per location, and that included the travel time from one location to the next. So in order to do that, fast and light are the orders of the day. And this platform, you could really go. And you could go all day with this. So what did we deliver? Well, we delivered a lot of assets. You can see on the chart here that the data came in a fast way with 32 days of data collection. So just under 2 months, really, of work. We collected a lot of data, and we were able to do it fast, and we were able to do it accurate. So it improved our data quality for these assets. But more importantly, I really feel like the technology platform gave us a method into the future. We could really see how mobile technology really works in this environment. And I'm really glad that we were able to partner with our GPS provider and really, and Esri, and really make this happen. Let's show that video of the app in action. So here we are using the app, and what we have here is in Collector, we have the power lines, and I'm navigating from one location to the next. So I'm literally walking. So this is in a parking lot situation, and I'm walking up to a power pole. And the location on the map is not where I am, so I have to find that location. And when I get to that location, I'm going to turn around a little bit, and I'm going to see that I have 1-inch accuracy. So the GPS device is delivering that accuracy to me, and we're going to check it out. And then the next step is we're going to update that location. So we're going to take that location, and I have to select it on the map. And when I select that pole, I can see some metadata about the pole number, the location, whether or not I've inspected it. I'm going to put it into edit mode, And then I'm going to hit the little figure at the top, the button on the top, and it's going to update that location, and it's going to move it exactly where it is. So now I've updated that location, and I'm synchronizing with the cloud, and now that update is complete. Once I've updated the location, I really need to add some assets to this to complete my inventory. So I'm going to look at the top of that pole, and I'm going to select a cross-arm assembly. So I've looked at the top, I know what those are, and here's a list of assets that I can choose from. So we have different styles of construction. So we have overhead wood poles with cross arms, we have fiberglass cross arms, we have lots of opportunities to different materials that we've used over the years. And I can put in a quantity as well. And that's a very simple example. But we can also start to add other data too. So here I might have other assets on that pole. I have a light, and in this case I have different kinds of lights, LEDs, 150 watt high pressure sodium, and we can start to add other directions, like we can add direction that the light is facing. These are all drop downs that we've created to enable to collect the data that we want to collect. And the last thing that I need to collect for this pole is a transformer. And a transformer has not just an asset record or what it is in our accounting system, which in this case we're going to select right here, but it also has other information, a transformer number that we're going to use in our asset collections. So we're going to use this to manage our equipment, and we want to know exactly which one is stored there. I also want to verify the size in the field because sometimes those corporate records can be a little off, so we want to verify that, and we're going to collect that. And then once we're done with that, we're going to send those updates. And with that, you can see that it's pretty easy for the field worker to really get a lot of work done quickly. There wasn't a lot of typing to do, and there wasn't a lot of management of that.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
I really liked this concept of user independence that you talked about. And I get why that would be helpful for you guys in the office, but what did the line workers think about that?
Well, you know, we started with a little bit of skepticism. It's new technology for them too, right? But they know the work and they leaned into it, and I was really glad for that. One guy barely really knew all the functions of his iPhone before he got started with that. So he got a lot out of it in terms of teaching that opportunity. So I think they liked that independence of being able to get a lot of work done.
Well, I imagine a lot of people are in the same position as you. Thank you for sharing your story. I bet it was really helpful. Would you mind sticking around and answering some more questions later?
I'd love to, thanks.
Awesome, well, we'll catch you later.
Thanks.
So at this point, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Bill, who's going to talk a little bit more about some mobile ideas. Bill?
Thanks, Stacia, and thanks, Kurt. So we've heard two really good stories from Fort Hill and Sulphur Springs. What I like to think about what they've been doing is digital transformation. And there's really two elements of digital transformation. The first, of course, is using enabling and modern technology, like the ArcGIS platform. The other really is changing the way we work. And Kurt showed that, and Fort Hill showed that. In effect, really changing our behavior. And sometimes this notion of digital transformation is kind of misunderstood. I like to use the term digital transition as sort of an interim process to get us to this notion of digital transformation. And sometimes it's interesting to know the difference. And one of my favorite stories about digital transition and digital transformation has to involve the music industry. So I don't know how many people kind of remember this thing. It's called an 8-track, and it's an analog device. It uses tape. The tape's kind of falling out here now. And a digital transition from the 8-track really went and evolved into a CD. But really, did we change our behavior when we went from 8-track to CDs? Well, not really, because we have to store these things and they end up in our glove compartment, just like the old 8-tracks and the old cassettes. But the notion of digital transformation was about changing our behavior. So now, the transition from CD to things like streaming music, like Spotify and Alexa and the iTunes platform, they transformed not just the content and the way in which we listen to music, but literally everything about that. How we buy music, how we share music, all of that sort of stuff. And what's underlying this new technology of digital transformation for the music industry, and actually even the movie industry, is the notion of a platform. And both Kurt and Fort Hill folks talked about a platform. You know, in the case of iTunes, the iTunes platform or the Amazon platform. And in a similar way, the ArcGIS platform is not just about digital transition, but about digital transformation. So when I think about digital transition in my business, I was in the power business for many, many years, and this thing, this work order package with all the paper, is really very common. And in fact, the digital transition that many of you have already made, look at them, papers are falling all over the place, is converting from your paper-made maps to these GIS-made maps. But the funny thing that happened along the way was that we still kind of had the same behavior, didn't we? Even though we transitioned from paper maps to digital maps, we didn't really change the way we worked. We kind of kept the old processes. But the ArcGIS platform allows us, just like the Spotify platform, to be faster, to be immediate, to be customer-oriented, to be friendly. And to kind of illustrate this notion of this ArcGIS platform, I want to introduce my colleague Brian, who's going to give us a bit of a demo around the ArcGIS platform. Take it away, Brian.
Great, thanks so much, Bill. Good morning, everybody. So Bill just talked about a digital transformation. And Kurt showed that as well in his demonstration of how they started utilizing this digital technology to capture information. So what you're seeing up on the screen now is a dashboard that's actually pulling together information from field crews, and it's providing real-time updates of exactly what's going on in terms of a gas outage situation. So this information is capturing the status of a relight. So in the field right now, many people are still reliant on paper, just as Bill had, to go into the back office and see what that new relight is or where they need to go out and do work. So rather than doing that, here we can see exactly how many meters are currently out in the view, what the status is of those assignments, so who's actually out in the field doing this work, as well as the relight status for every single one of those meters that we have to get relit. And as I pan and zoom, management can see exactly where this field staff is and where everyone is in the field to know exactly what the operational situation is. So now let's go through a couple of the roles out in the field and see how any utility could get this similar configuration up and running incredibly easily. So here's the dashboard for management. So let's flip over to a view that shows what a dispatcher could have to ensure that field staff are getting out to the right locations. So here I have that same view of information, but I can actually start dispatching those field crews to go out and do the work. So here I'm going to make a selection of a couple of these meters that are currently out. After we make that selection, I can pick all of those meters and then assign these to a crew member. So let's create assignments right with all of those three items. I pick my assignment type of outage. We're going to assign this to a field staff who's currently working. We can see where they're all located. After I make that selection, I can now pick the priority and the due date and the time that we need to get this completed. Let's pick our time and put in a quick description of what the situation is on the ground. So we've got 3 outages that need to get relit. And as we create these assignments, these are now dispatched immediately to the field staff. And they can pull these up on iPads, on Android devices, or any mobile tool that they might be using to see exactly what work they need to do to get done. So now that that work has been dispatched, let's flip over to the field crew to see that work roll in. So you can see we just had 3 critical assignments added. In just a few seconds, our dispatcher assigned those, and now the field crews can get started on that work. Again, this is a digital transformation. We're not reliant on paper and disconnection. The field and the office know exactly what's going on. So as I click this outage, I'm going to simply acknowledge that I received this work order. So I acknowledge it again in the back office. They know exactly what's going on, and they know I've received this and have started work. I can hit start, and I can start my assignment. I then have the ability to navigate directly to this assignment using offline maps and also using any of my own assets that I have. So rather than being reliant on a navigation device that is simply consumer-based, I can load in all of our offline routes, I could load in all of our assets, and this is going to alert me when I'm actually reaching that specific meter point. And when I reach that point, I can now go back to Workforce. And these apps simply talk to each other seamlessly. And so now, after I've gotten to this spot, as Kurt showed, I can now use Collector to go in and update the attributes for all of these records. So I want to let people know in the back office we've actually started work on this meter. So as I click this meter setting, I'm going to update the attributes for it and let us know in the back office that we've changed this from out to relit. I could also let them know that I wasn't able to enter the premise or any other status update. I have the ability to add photos and update all of these records. So you can see this just turned from red to green, and that meter was just relit. So now let's go back to Workforce and let's finish that assignment. So as I hit finish, that point turns from white to green. So now management, dispatchers, the entire back office know that this work was completed. So as we go back to the dashboard, we can see all of these statuses come in real time and update. So no longer, again, are we reliant on trying to figure out and guess what is going on in the field. Every single person from the back office to the field is connected. And they're connected digitally, and this flow of information just exchanges seamlessly. And everyone knows exactly what's going on. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Bill. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Well, having worked in a utility for many years, we have had situations where each department kind of has their own little, I don't know, would you call it a silo? But it's not just about internal communication and collaboration that is actually important. Having worked in a utility for many years, I had to work with public safety and with the city departments and the water department and the gas company and all of these pieces and parts. So collaboration within the company really needed to improve, but the ArcGIS platform allows that to happen. But not only within the company, but outside the company. Because can you imagine if we had the ability to see exactly what the water company is digging, when are they digging, when there's a flood, or when the gas company has a leak, and bringing that all together as if all of that data from all of these other agencies belong to us, and yet not having to worry about updating that data. By using the ArcGIS platform, we bring together all kinds of things. We can even bring services from external agencies like weather services or lightning services and bring it all together within the platform and organize that data by location so that we can understand better the situation. So there's really three things I like to think about this platform that all begin with the letter C, the three C's, which is communication. So the notion that Brian showed and Fort Hill and Sulphur Springs, it's the ability to communicate in real time the status, like what's going on right now. Collaboration is really how we can work together. I mean, not just within the utility, but maybe between permitting agencies and other interested stakeholders, customers for sure, the community. The notion of collaboration, let's work together. In fact, this notion of collaboration is really the essence behind this concept of the smart community. It's not about transferring files or papers or that big folder. It's about doing things immediately. And the last one is about coordination, coordinating work so that we wouldn't have to make mistakes and do things that we shouldn't be doing. Which reminds me of a story that when I worked for the power company, we had a common activity, which was dig a trench across the street, installing a conduit or a cable or something like that. The problem with that is we had this sort of nasty habit, we didn't do it on purpose, of course, was to dig the trench the day after the city repaved the street. And of course, they were very unhappy, and we were really embarrassed. But this happened more than we really wanted it to happen. So how did that actually happen? Well, it was really a lack of communication, a lack of collaboration, and a lack of coordination. But using the ArcGIS platform, imagine is if the city decided, we needed to revise our paving schedule, and immediately the electric company had access to that data immediately through the platform, not through file transfers, but immediately, then all of that would change. We'd be able to be collaboration. And when we think about community-based utilities, this concept of collaboration is extraordinary because the community really benefits. So the idea of a digital transformation is really about changing behavior as well as implementing new technology. And speaking of changing behavior, we've invited two friends back to talk. We're going to invite Kurt Towler back from Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Co-op, and my friend Pat Hole from the city of, he was the former assistant general manager for the electric department for a community-based utility, Riverside Public Utilities in the city of Riverside here in California, to talk about a little bit about behaviors and change. So I'd like to welcome these two folks to our stage.
Thanks, Bill.
So I have a couple of questions, or maybe ask you for some comments. So what advice would you give our audience in terms of the implementation of this new change, this digital transformation? Let's start with you, Kurt.
Well, I think what's important first is to understand what your users are working on and to really leverage the tools and make it work for the end user. If it doesn't work for the end user, then you're not going to get the acceptance and buy-in that you really want to move forward, and they don't get the efficiencies that they need.
Yeah.
Kurt, I absolutely agree with you. I think understanding the user's needs and the way that they work is critical in any application. I would also say that there are a lot of templates and success stories out there today. There's a lot of data that's available, and it makes a lot of sense to jumpstart your efforts rather than reinventing the wheel, to leverage some of those existing capabilities.
I had a user who I saw an opportunity to improve their workflows, right? And so I thought about, well, can we bring something in to help out? And at first it was, yes, that would be great. But then when I brought in the solution, it didn't go over very well the first time because I thought I had taken this idea from another utility and we were sharing information, but I hadn't really transitioned it to how we work and how that person on the front lines worked. And when I had that follow-up conversation, they said, I'd really like it to do this instead. And so the first time we do it, it's about engagement, and it's about understanding what that user wants. And then we can get to the point where now they can't live without it because it does exactly what they need.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think both sides of the coin are important. You can leverage what somebody else has done, but you have to tie it in with your users. I also love the idea of looking for early wins when you deploy applications. Thinking back to when we did our data conversion at the city of Riverside many years ago, the first data that we got back was very simplistic edge of pavement data, and there was not a lot of commercially available street data at that time. And we used that simple data to replace a hand-drawn map book that was used across the city in various departments as a common reference grid, a very primitive one. But we used that network to replace that, and immediately users in many departments saw a benefit and got on board with the program.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, the change of behavior is really difficult sometimes. And so speaking of that kind of change in behavior, what are some of the other obstacles that you see facing your utilities as you implement some of this new digital transformation? What are some of the obstacles?
Well, Bill, when you talk about transformation, I immediately think of change and change management. Back when Dilbert was popular, somebody had given me a t-shirt that said, "Change is good, you go first."
Yeah, that's right.
But in change management, there are many schools of thought, but most include this notion of educating people at the front end, and I think that that's vital. You have to create some awareness, not only about the problems, but also the potential solutions, and then ultimately create a desire in the user for the change. Once they understand the need and they have a desire to change, I think your battle's half over.
If you align GIS with the values of the organization and the we talk about the frontline worker, but there's the middle management and then there's the top management layers. And everyone has their sort of perspective on what the issues of the day are and our long-term vision. And really aligning with those values is super important, because that means that you can address them and you can be part of that solution going forward. And it also means that you're engaged and you're connected with all those parts of the organization, because we want to show decision makers what's happening in the field. And as we show those decision makers what's happening, that's coming from the frontline workers. And so the frontline workers know that they're visible, that their work makes a difference. So that's really important.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, when I think about obstacles in the industry, I'm always reminded about the aging workforce. And across our society, the demographics are shifting to an older population. In fact, I just read yesterday morning that 1/3 of the workforce today in the United States are millennials. And it's a good news, bad news. They don't have the experience that many of the older employees have, but they tend to embrace technology. They tend to embrace change a little bit differently. We had 2 gentlemen, their names rhyme, Dan and Stan, that worked for me for many years maintaining the electric utility infrastructure. We used to call that maps and records. And they transitioned, as you described, Bill, into maintaining those facilities in ArcInfo very early on. And they no longer work for the city. After 30 years of service, they have now been replaced by other employees who are all under 30. And fortunately, as part of that transition process, we were able to capture not only a lot of their knowledge about the system, but also incorporate many rules into the editing environment that enforce the kind of things that they knew intuitively from their experience.
You know, that reminds me of a story where one day I walked into the line room to really check out what's happening, and on my way to the office, and there was an apprentice who was working on a switching order, and he kept walking back up to the map. And so we have a big kiosk, a big TV that's displaying the map in real time. And he keeps walking back and forth, and he's got his piece of paper, and he walks back and forth. And I said, "What are you working on?" And he says, "Well, for my apprenticeship program, I have to do a switching order. I have to create a switching order." And that is an important thing, because he's trying to figure out how he's going to shift load from one substation to another. And it's a practice exercise, but he's engaging in the map to understand how that all works, running traces and finding the open points in the network. And I think those are really watershed moments where their engagement is in the beginning of their careers, and they're understanding how this information is valuable to them. We have a responsibility to make it valuable to them with making sure it's correct and all those things, and making sure the workflows all work. But it really it's quite a difference when you shifted all responsibility from the line worker and then the person in the back office who's just updating the records. Now it's a much more interactive enterprise.
Sure. We're sort of, my generation is what I sometimes call digital immigrants. We haven't really kind of grown up with it. And many of the millennials coming on board today have been grown up through social media. And the social media is a platform for transformation as well. And so as we introduce new technology like the ArcGIS platform, having that sort of millennial-oriented way where things just happen instantly is really interesting. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the business value of implementing a platform. So when I worked for the power company, I worked for a guy named Russ. And Russ told me, kind of, I don't know if it's tongue-in-cheek, but he always said, there are only 4 things you have to know about running a power company. It actually was electric and gas company, so it applies to both. And that is make money, or at least keep rates low and keep costs down. So number 1, it's really about the stakeholders. Number 2, keep customers happy. And that wasn't just about outages, but also about new customer connections and doing things really quickly. Keep customers happy. Keep employees safe. And of course, the 4th one he always liked to say was stay out of trouble, which is really about compliance and regulatory reporting and so forth. So I'd like to ask you two gentlemen exactly how you kind of work the business value to your senior management and to the rest of your employees. So let's start with you, Pat.
Well, Bill, GIS has the potential to transform and add value to almost everything that we do. As I was watching the gas demonstration there, it reminded me of the very first mobile app that we deployed at the city. And that app took a very paper manual process for street light outages. Customers call in and report troubles with their streetlights. And it put that on an iPad that the man in the field could see in real time. So as soon as they were keyed in by a customer service rep, they appeared on his map as new work to do. And they work a very early shift. They start very, very early in the morning. You could even call it late at night, and then work till mid-morning. So he was finishing up his last call for the day. And on the app, they're able to, as you demonstrated, note what the problem was and its resolution and so forth. And he noticed that a new call had appeared, and it was fortunately between his location and the office. And he thought, well, I have time to hit that on the way in. So he made that repair, acknowledged it in the system, went in, dropped off his truck, and went home and went to sleep.
Yeah.
I got the phone call from the customer who was absolutely blown away that within 60 minutes of his phone call, there was a truck outside repairing the light.
Yeah.
That customer felt the business value, right?
Right.
That customer felt the value, but it really affects almost everything that we do. I came up with 3 more C's while you were talking, Bill.
Oh, 3 more C's, huh?
You want to hear them?
What are they?
The customer,
Yeah.
the community, and the crews.
Yeah.
We add value to all those things. The customer, of course, is looking for low rates and the best possible service and service restoration. In your community, you're supporting community values and the regulations, and your decision makers, your stakeholders. They all need excellent real-time information in the best possible context. And then finally, your crews, they need to be safe. And I've had line workers tell me they didn't get into line work because they love computers.
No.
They got into line work because they like to work. But they do like to work with good information and efficiently and effectively.
You know, Bill, I was thinking about how in our project, one of the key factors was we had a very effective cross-functional team that came together and said, we all agree what the goal is. And when we talk about a platform, a lot of times we say GIS is a platform. But our cooperative, our member-owned cooperative, is a platform for delivering safe and reliable electricity, right? And we want that platform to work. And in our case, I'd like to make GIS the connective tissue that really connects all those pieces that really enable us to do better work and to enable the community to feel good about their service.
Well, that's great. So just to kind of wrap this up, Kurt, do you have any kind of final thoughts for our audience to, sort of get them excited and encouraged about this ArcGIS platform?
You know, keep testing, keep trying, lean into the future, try it out. It's not that hard to try out. Take a few minutes here and there, try it, see if it works for you. Find the right mix. It's always about the right mix for what you're working on.
Right. How about you, Pat? Any final thoughts?
That's good. I would agree with that. Jump in, try something, and demonstrate it. Go visit another user who is already doing some of these things, and take a board member or a director or somebody with you. As soon as you get some other people excited, they'll begin to catch the vision.
Right. Well, thanks, Kurt, and thanks, Pat, for some insight into the way these things work. And I'm going to turn it over to Stacia. Stacia?
Thanks, gentlemen. Everything we've focused on so far has been all about sharing maps and information inside your organization. So let's pivot a little bit, and let's take a look at how some utilities are proactively engaging their customers and opening up some new ways to let customers talk back to them. Let me introduce my colleague Joe, who's going to highlight a few examples.
Thank you, Stacia. Sharing information with your customers can be challenging. That's why we put all of our public information here in one central location. Customer engagement is more important now than ever because customers demand excellence from their service providers. So let's look at a couple different ways that the ArcGIS platform can help achieve this. First way is by sharing your annual reports in the ArcGIS platform's story map. Here we have Westerville Power and Light's sustainability report from 2016. It starts out with a message from our CEO, a company fact sheet, and most importantly, dynamic maps that your customers can interact with. This map is showing which of our customers are already using renewable energy sources, such as solar panel installations and wind farms. Our next map highlights our LED conversion initiative. We've already upgraded 728 street lamps from high-pressure sodium bulbs to LEDs. And here we can go ahead and see exactly where we've installed them. Our next map highlights how amazing our employees are. Over the last year, our employees have donated over 10,000 hours of volunteer time. And we've done this side by side with over 200 volunteers. If we look at any one of these sites, we can see the number of volunteers who participated, the pounds of garbage collected, and a picture from the event. Finally, I'd like to showcase our dedication to the environment. Working alongside our environmental team, we've identified which transmission towers and power poles are prime locations for nests and perches in our urban environment. And once we've identified these locations, we can go ahead and mitigate the structures to ensure that they meet safety inspections. As you can see, a story map is a great way to show your annual reports and have your customers engage with them. Another great way to engage your customers is to let them know when and where a system improvement project is going to happen. As an employee, I was asked to update the map about a new pole replacement project on North Cleveland Avenue. So all I have to do is click on construction zones and add in a polygon where the construction is going to be occurring. Now I just have to type in what sort of project it is into the notes section, and the date it will be completed. Let's say that's Friday. And now, on the public-facing side, a customer can instantly see that information. Click on the polygon and see that there is a pole replacement project scheduled to be completed by October 27th. For more information, please call us at this number. This helps our customers plan their routes to work and errands and makes their life easier. One of the most critical pieces of information that we can share out with our customers is about outages. Here we have an example of an outage map created by one of our customers, APS. And if you click on one of the outages, you can see the number of customers impacted, the estimated restoration time, and what caused the outage. Putting this sort of information in the palm of your customer's hands lets them know that you care and that you're doing everything possible to restore power as quickly as possible. But customer engagement is not only about pushing information out to your customers. It's also about asking them about what's going on in their community. So that's why we've dedicated this page to customer reporting. So let's take a look at how a customer might report a streetlight problem. All they have to do is open up this smart form and type in their problem, such as lights cycling on and off. In the description field, they can enter in a more descriptive situation, such as it's constantly flickering. Then all they have to do is enter in their contact information and the date it was submitted. And most importantly, they can actually select the specific street lamp that's causing them grief. Once they submit this information, we can go ahead and field verify it and then send out a repair truck with the right parts and the right tools to fix the problem the first time. This not only lowers costs for our organization, which we can pass down to our ratepayers, but it also increases customer satisfaction by fixing the problem the first time. Using the ArcGIS platform as a way to engage with your customers will increase your customer engagement. Thank you. Back to you, Stacia.
Let's take a step back and recap what you learned today. You saw the value a location platform brought to Fort Hill, to Sulphur Springs Valley, and to the city of Riverside. You saw how easy it was to share maps and up-to-date information between your office teams and your field workers. And you saw how some utilities are leveraging interactive maps to communicate with their communities, and also new mechanisms to allow customers to interact with the utility. Pat and Kurt shared some of the challenges that they faced and how they overcame them. Esri's here to help too. Whether you're a big company or a small co-op, we have enterprise agreements that are going to enable you to put these tools in the hands of all your employees and contractors for a flat rate. If hosting a public outage map worries you, Esri has the expertise and the capacity to do it for you. You can actually host your whole GIS if you want us to. And if change management is a concern, let us work with you to design and implement a staff development plan for all of your teams. Everything you saw today is just part of the ArcGIS platform. To get started, provision a portal, bring over any maps you might already have, organize some groups, and invite members of your organization. If that still sounds scary, give us a call. We'll help you do it. We really want to listen to opportunities that you have to leverage a location platform in your organization and help you navigate any challenges that stand in your way of doing so. We want to hear from you. So after today's seminar, you're going to get a short survey in your inbox. We'll just have a couple of questions. We deeply value your feedback about this event, and it will have a way for you to ask us to get in touch with you. And if you can't wait that long, here's our email address and phone number. You can get in touch with us right away. Thank you again for spending your hour with us today, and I hope you've left today with some inspiration and some fresh ideas. Happy mapping!